start. It's been a little while. So
we're back. Great.
Thanks, everyone, for finally tuning in to the newest episode of Couch Philosophy. I'm your host, Riese LaRose. This is my co-host.
Clovis, that's me.
Clovis Wong.
Yeah, Clovis Wong, the one and only.
And we're back with another edition, another topic. I think we're probably just going to go right into it on this one. That might just be what we do from now on. So
yeah, cool.
Unless we have something really interesting to talk about, I can't think of anything.
I mean, when does that ever happen, Reese?
Okay, nothing's going on in our lives. That's why we have to have these topics.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so today's topic is bodily autonomy, and I think this has been relevant. This has always been relevant. I'm realizing more and more that it kind of affects. You kind of think about it every day, or you don't think about it maybe, but I've been thinking about it more and more. And
it's the kind of thing where like you don't think about it until you're confronted by it. You know, there's something that happens in your life and it's like, oh yeah, that's a thing that I've been taking for granted.
Yeah. Or if it happens in the country, and then I feel like everyone's thinking about it more now. And,
if anyone happens to be listening to this episode in like 2 years, we are referencing the recent Roe vs. Wade ruling by the Supreme Court.
It's
which is
still
a profoundly undemocratic institution.
It's still surreal. And then everyone just kind of goes, wait, why do we have this thing again? And then we get upset enough about it that maybe something would happen, but then it all gets, by the time the election cycle renews, we all kind of forget about it. And then
get out there and vote.
We never change the... just get out there and vote. It doesn't seem like...
If you keep voting, then maybe these undemocratically elected officials will eventually die and be replaced by better ones.
I don't know...
I'm not sure what the correlation is there between that and voting. I don't know.
I don't know how willing you are to talk about it, but I do see on your Instagram stories some of the alternatives to voting, might say, which are like, wishing on a genie for something more powerful than a vote.
True.
Like that.
True, exactly. You wouldn't want.
But there are things more powerful than voting.
Yeah. I mean, the way I put it is that if you have the privilege to easily vote, then I don't think voting makes the world worse, in my opinion. There are some people who do believe that voting makes the world worse because, like, you kind of legitimize the institution by voting.
Right.
But I'm willing to say that voting doesn't make the world worse. So I think if it's easy and convenient for you to do so, like in Washington, we have like mail-in ballots. It's like pretty easy.
Which everyone gets so upset about in states that don't.
Exactly.
Just do them.
So like I submit my ballot, especially for like local stuff, because I feel like local stuff matters more. But I also feel like it's important not to be delusional about the impact of vote if you can. But that's like where political action should start.
Yeah.
Your political action should not end at the ballot box. That should be like, I voted, and here are also many other meaningful ways I can contribute to my community, because that's how I think of voting. And I think there's kind of a lot of vote. I want to say propaganda, but that's not really right either. That seems kind of unfair. But like, there's definitely a lot of mainstream political strategy on both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party of like, oh, voting. And it's not that voting's irrelevant, but like...
Do Republicans want to spread that message, though?
I mean, that's true. Do they? It's kind of complicated.
At least
they
not
want
universally.
Certain kinds of people to vote,
Yeah, to Democrats, it seems to just be the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole ruling, the rescinding of rights is still kind of surreal to me, and I still... don't totally know how to talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think...
But obviously we should talk about it.
Like, it's definitely really awful, and it really sucks. But I think it is kind of frustrating to me that this is what it took to create that turning point in the political conversation.
Yeah.
Because in a way, like... I mean, just to start with voting, like, voting has not been accessible to a large portion of the population.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have been convicted of a felony, then you actually can't vote in a lot of states. which on at surface seems like a reasonable thing, but it's actually kind of messed up, especially if you think about how incarceration works and the kinds of things that count as felonies. A lot of them are really stupid and should not rescind your. I don't think anything should rescind your voting privileges, but definitely a lot of things that are counted as felonies are like ridiculous.
If you actually take a look at that, it's so wrong. Yeah. And then,
incidentally, on that note, trying to get an abortion in a state where it's illegal also constitutes a felony. So
right.
If you try to get an abortion, you lose the right to vote, which is also kind of messed up.
Yeah, and are people going to start patrolling the borders and doing all this stuff? But
and then, like, in regards to birth control specifically, like a lot of minority groups and like oppressed minorities historically have constantly been subject to attacks on their bodily autonomy, especially in regards to reproduction. There's been, like, in the United States, a long history of like forced sterilization of Black and Indigenous women, just to start. There's been a lot of like really weird stuff that's happened. And
I was gonna say,
encourage people to look up more about it. So, but it's always frustrating to me that it's like, oh, this becomes a big deal because now white women have difficulty getting abortions, and then it's like, oh, now
then it's like you break through this dam, and suddenly it's like all the white women are coming out of the woodwork. But this is like, nothing new in terms of
where were you when we were talking about like like protecting the bodily autonomy of minorities? Where were you when we were talking about like trans people? Where were you? And like it's just kind of annoying. I'm sure it's a little unfair, and I always hate to be like the negative person of like, well, we've had many other issues, but like I'm thankful that this kind of happened as I'm not thankful that it happened, but I'm thankful that at least there's kind of this watershed political moment around it.
I understand that. Another thing that I see people saying a lot is that they're not going to stop with Roe.
Yeah.
And then
this is the beginning.
That's the implication that this is just the beginning, which clearly they've been ignoring.
But really,
a lot
it's the middle.
Up to this point.
The beginning was somewhere a lot earlier.
And there was never, abortion was never actually like a guaranteed right for anyone.
It was already being
even
eroded.
in states where you could. It's kind of in the same way that all of this is kind of conditional, which means you really have to question like authority. And I know you and I, Clovis, were at Pride last month, and cops at Pride, I think that's pretty divisive, but it's pretty clear to me that like any movement that's supposed to be revolutionary or radical in any way, or even try to challenge the status quo, fight for anyone, really, there's really no place for that, considering it's all conditional.
Exactly.
And at the snap of a fingers, like, these will be the people that will be enforcing taking away your autonomy in whatever way that ends up happening. And that includes white women. So, think about it.
It's complicated,
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, freedom is conditional. Like, it's all conditional in terms of what we're talking about. Like, it's it seems to mostly avoid like straight white men in certain ways, or in most ways, but I feel like even that's conditional. So it's kind of
it's conditional upon labor. It's conditional upon you like upholding certain ideas about identity. So
it's hard to see anyone support that kind of ideal where like there's a reason to do this. Like, some of the reasons people give are like abortion is not birth control or something like that, but
all right, this
it becomes an ethical, beyond just whether it's murder, which is its own ethical thing, but it becomes an ethical discussion about women. And that's where you get really like
from like a political strategy perspective, I feel like it kind of gets turned this like red herring thing of like about the morality of abortion.
Yeah,
because there's plenty of things that are moral that shouldn't necessarily be illegal, you know? Like, there's a lot of immoral things that are legal. So that, in my mind, doesn't seem to be sufficient justification for anything. But on a purely philosophical level and, like, a rhetorical level, I've been thinking a little bit about it. And I've read a lot of, like, abortion arguments in the context of, like, analytic philosophy. So, like, Judith Jarvis Thomson is a really famous philosopher, and then she talks about, like, the violinist thought experiment. You should look that up. It's great if you're listening. She talks about, I think it was Judith Jarvis Thomson. It was an acorn is not an oak tree argument. So, like, something that has the capacity to become an oak tree isn't an oak tree. It's an acorn until it becomes an oak tree. And then the analogy being, like, personhood. Like, if you jack off, is like, are you committing genocide by, like, some thousands of sperm dying, you know? Like, does that constitute genocide? Clearly not, I would like to say.
It should be clear. Some people will actually follow it that far back. I mean, if you really test the limits of that logic.
But at some level, it doesn't really matter for, like, the political argumentation.
It's kind of a red herring.
It's, like, turns into, like, this red herring. But I did read a really interesting argument. I should look up the article because I feel bad saying this without attributing the original source. So if you're reading this on Facebook or social media, hopefully I will leave a comment below on where I got this idea. But I read a really interesting argument in a philosophy journal. Is it a philosophy journal? Whatever, check the comments. But the argument went something like this. And the argument was, instead of saying in response to people who oppose abortion that, oh, a fetus is not a person and abortion doesn't constitute murder, then you turn the argument into an argument about personhood, which is this really fuzzy philosophical concept. But what you can do instead is bite the bullet, and you can say, yes, a fetus is a person and an abortion is murder, but we've already established many contexts where murder is okay. For example, like self-defense.
Yeah.
If it pretty much, I think a large number of the people who do support abortion, who oppose abortion, would say it's okay to say, like, use a firearm and kill someone who's making an assault on your life.
Yeah.
So you can turn on them and say,
coming from
sure, abortion is murder. But there's already established cases where killing someone is okay, you know?
Yeah, I can understand why people would be hesitant to go that route, because it does kind of, you feel like you're going to be painted by the other side as a murderer, which... Being
pro-murder.
It's a
difficult position.
I understand what you're saying in the context of you're trying to kind of...
It's a way of rerouting the conversation.
Show that there's already this precedent, kind of.
Yeah. I don't think this argument is, like, necessarily that... I mean, we've already kind of established, like, a lot of these moral conversations are actually not what the politics are about, because there are many things that I think are immoral that I don't think should be illegal, you know, for one. So in some ways, the morality of the situation doesn't matter. There's also the practical reality of people will get abortions no matter what. So, like, you should legalize them so people don't die getting them, you know?
Yeah.
and all, like, there's many other far more relevant considerations than the abstract philosophical morality of ideal cases of abortion. But, you know, it's just kind of... I kind of want to bring it up just because, like, I feel like it always comes up every time this enters the political conversation. And then the same arguments get rehashed over and over again. And it's just, like, painful for me to witness as someone with a lot of, like, philosophy background who's read a lot of different abortion arguments. So
I just think that people who care about this are probably just really tired of having those arguments at this point, when it's like, I don't know, I feel a sense of sort of hopelessness, I guess.
Yeah, it is really, it's kind of disappointing. It's not surprising, but it's disappointing.
Yeah, right.
If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it is one of those things.
Yeah, and I think the president too, because what the Supreme Court rules is they don't necessarily rule. They're the way the Supreme Court operates legally. They're not ruling abortion is bad or abortion is good. What they're ruling is
on
it
precedent.
constitutional? That's the basis under which the Supreme Court operates, in my understanding. If you are
Yeah.
a legal expert, if you're a legal expert, you should leave a comment and then explain to me how I totally misunderstand this. But my understanding of the Supreme Court is that they basically just rule whether or not it's constitutional or not.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
you know, whether or not that's a good criteria or not remains up for debate. But arguably, you probably could make the legal case that it is not in fact constitutional. But I think that's a problem with the Constitution, not with abortion.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because under Obama we didn't establish any long-term legal protections for a lot of these laws. So then now that there's a change of scenery, and then the Supreme Court changes, and all these other institutions change, and Congress needs change. Now we can't actually protect any of these things, So it's kind of, in hindsight, it's like, oh, actually, Obama left a pretty disappointing legacy in that regard.
Trying to look at the things in the Constitution that we've actually changed, and versus the amount that clearly need changing, and it's like, God, I don't think that's what the people who wrote it were expecting. Like, how many hundreds of years, and we haven't really changed it much. Supposedly they wanted us to change it. They kind of built in a method for changing it, for amending it.
Yeah.
And we've only done that so much.
Yeah.
I mean,
there were clearly
really
a lot of messed up things in the Constitution. So,
yeah, we could also just get rid of it, but
kind of like slavery was kind of like a big thing in the Constitution. I don't know. That was kind of bad. I'm glad we got rid of that,
It all...
you could only vote if you were a property owning person. So if you didn't own property, you couldn't vote. That's kind of messed up.
Who actually had rights?
So...
Not women,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
maybe that's the Constitution working as intended, too.
It could be.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there's a limit to how much the people who wrote it really cared about anyone outside of that sphere of who they probably interacted with, regardless of whether they actually considered black people or not.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like
another way of thinking about it, too, is that this kind of a Marxist view of history is that you kind of have these incremental revolutions, right? And, relative to, say, monarchy and divine right of kings, certainly, a bourgeois-oriented, capitalist society is probably more equitable than, feudalism.
Yeah.
At that point in Britain's economic development, it wasn't exactly feudal. There's some fuzziness. I'm making some hand-wavy gestures just for the sake of argument. But, there's a degree in which there were major issues that were present from the very beginning of, the concept of America, not the least being massive land theft and genocide against indigenous people. But, there's a degree
they
in
were
which,
making an
maybe
incremental
wealthy
progress.
landowners should be in charge instead of the king,
Sure.
It's, marginally better.
It's like people who are
Not
already...
in a meaningful way for most people, but...
It's not just the people who are descended from kings and gods, but it's people who are descended from rich people
yeah,
who own land.
That's maybe a step up,
Yeah, I can understand that. And, clearly we need another revolution. Right. It's going to be...
Right. But the point is that, something can be radical for its time period and still not be very meaningful from where we are now. And so, we need to, actively adapt,
Yeah. Isn't that wild that people think, that radical thing was as radical as we ever need to get? What was radical back then is perfect for right now, and we should keep it that way. That's what turns you
into a conservative, actually, definitionally.
The most radical thing that I think a lot of people believe in right now is the Civil War, that they're glad that the North won, at least. Not everyone agrees on that. But,
yeah, there's still some holdouts.
But that's the furthest people go with it.
Yeah.
I mean, people still think Vietnam was good, or that
Yeah. Man. It's
Yeah.
really depressing.
Well, I've been having some other thoughts on body autonomy.
Okay,
Obviously,
okay.
this is kind of what spurred it all on as something that we should talk about.
Okay,
But
okay.
I'm just thinking about the ways that that bodily autonomy kind of gets reserved for men in some situations, like specifically in like the public sphere. There's it only really goes so far for women
Yeah.
in the sense that like people kind of feel entitled to femininity, and that's seems to be like kind of where a lot of the rules, both the like laws and the unsaid rules come from, is like kind of controlling that, or like this is not something you can do.
Yeah, like the way it gets policed. By
Yeah,
the
like
people
body
around you.
policing, like breastfeeding, like just nudity in general, I think.
Yeah.
And like the way that historically and still trans people have been targeted as like for like solicitation or for disturbance of the peace just for existing, whether they were doing sex work or not. I know a lot of people that's happened to, and I still, like, every time I wait for someone somewhere, I sometimes I worry about it, because it's like if you're just hanging around, people start to give you these looks, and it seems like they're trying to assess whether you're soliciting sex work or not. And then sometimes cops go by or whatever, and they're looking at you, but
Yeah, that's very uncomfortable.
try to, yeah.
Especially the policing. Because for the record, sex work is work, and you know,
Yeah, we'll
I don't
probably
think we all sell our bodies under capitalism. I mean, obviously, sex work is different in some important ways. For example, you're be subject to a lot more police violence and police scrutiny.
But I mean, that's something I'm surprised we haven't talked about that much yet, but that's also a way that it's constantly an excuse, and it's also a harbinger of the ways that body autonomy gets taken away from people, or how they're planning to, is how it gets taken away from sex workers just constantly.
Yeah, that's a great example of bodily autonomy, you know, because all these people who claim to be like, oh, like sex work is bad for women, all those people aren't like going around helping women all the time. I feel like, you know, because it's like, you know, why are we not creating a society with universal health care and guaranteed housing so that people,
even in a society like that, it should be decriminalized, like,
right,
additionally,
exactly,
you know?
right, yeah. And it's like, you know, there may be a lot of people who, given the opportunity, would continue doing sex work, which I think is great. But also, like, a lot of work is coercive. It's not limited to sex work, you know, like, work under capitalism is somewhat coercive, because if you stop working, then you die. Like, society allows you to die if you are not being productive.
The thing for trans women is society kind of funnels you into that, because you're gonna actually face, in some ways it's less hard to do sex work, because you won't be as constantly forced to deal with people that really just the disrespect of people, and like not really wanting to see you as a person or have you in their sphere or anything. Like I was reading, this is something that's been happening more and more, but with the bathroom bills, but there was a trans man who was told to use the women's restroom because he had someone knew that he was trans, so they were like, okay, well, you have to use the women's restroom. So he went in there, and one woman, I think, started making a big deal about it, and then waited outside with some men to just beat the shit out of him, and he had to go to he actually got arrested after that as well for disturbing the peace. But it's, and then like that's something that happens pretty often at workplaces too, is like being told you have to use a certain restroom, and then sometimes it's just makes people uncomfortable enough that you get fired, or they try to fire you for a different reason. But
which is like the messed up thing too, is like which bathroom are like, you know, sometimes you just gotta take a piss. It's like I don't have to think about this, you know.
Yeah, and you don't want to be thinking about that at work too when you're already stressed out about this stuff.
And like if you have to evaluate for your own safety, like on a daily case by case basis, like how much do I pass today? What gender am I presenting as? How will other people interpret that? That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it feels like something you do have to do. Like you can't just not put any thought into that. There's never been a situation where you could really just...
Because I mean, like, everyone's subject to gender policing all the time, but it's not the same for everyone all the time, right? Like, there are definitely degrees in
which isn't to say that the bathroom stuff isn't going to affect cis people too, because it will. It is based entirely kind of on presentation. So you know.
Also, like, I know this is totally not the point, but can we just grapple with the material reality of gendered restrooms just for a brief moment?
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of
why do we need gendered restrooms? And I know this may seem kind of weird, but like, think about it. You know, we have the technology to like build bathroom stalls. You know, like, do we really just need the men's restroom so that all the dudes can piss in a trough together? Like, dude, does that really need to happen? Like, do we really just need men's bathrooms so that they have urinals? And I mean, I think one argument is that like a lot of people in men's restrooms happen to be a little less tidy. I could see that being a pain in the ass for everyone else, you know? But...
Well, yeah, that's the...
Like, do we really need two different... Like, it's the same toilet. Like, we could just build stalls, and everyone could go in and use the stalls. And, like, doesn't really make sense. And, I mean, normally you don't think about this, but you really grapple with the reality of the situation whenever you're at a large convention or event that's very, like, gender biased. Because like, you know, normally I'm at a lot of like conventions and stuff, and like the men's bathroom line's really long or something. But I was at a Stray Kids K-pop boy band concert last week with my, or it was last week, that was like 4 days ago, with my sister. It was great.
Cool. But you had a quick line,
my bias. But I was just like, damn, I just like casually strolled in the men's restroom, took care of my business, and left. And I was like, this is great. I love this. There's like a huge line for the women's restroom. I'm like, man, this is a new experience for me. It felt good.
The stall thing's a good point.
Right, but it just, I
don't think
think about it. There's a line for the women's bathroom.
Don't need urinals,
but there's just like 4 unused restroom stalls in the men's like, this is just a scam created by the bathroom industry to sell more bathrooms.
Is it? I don't know.
That was a joke. don't read too much into that one. But just some shower thoughts about the concept of gender segregated bathrooms in the first place. Because, you know,
I don't know why. Like, I feel
like
I agree with you.
There's a historical basis for it that I don't know about.
I feel like the only thing that actually affects me would change for me in some way would be like I'd be a little more self-conscious about doing my makeup.
Yeah.
But like the actual pissing and shitting, like I think that's a good point.
Right, like we all piss and shit, you know, like that's not a gendered experience.
I do feel, I think the discomfort that I feel like I would feel is maybe just coming from a lifetime of gendered restrooms.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right. I think it would take
Like if
some
we
getting
had
used
them
to,
for a generation, it would probably be very normal.
Right.
Personally, I like just a gender neutral single, just
just single occupancy, like
just a single occupancy toilet and a sink. I mean that I understand that that's not the optimal setup for every venue
for,
or whatever. But
sure.
Yeah. I don't know, what does that have to do with bodily autonomy?
I mean, it makes me because we were talking about like bathroom policing and bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
But
well,
it also makes me wonder, because when we talk about bodily autonomy, oftentimes it's like, who is the autonomy for, right? And I think in the case of the bathrooms, right, this is a really clear example where who are gender bathrooms actually for? And I think when you ask that question, it becomes a lot fuzzier.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Right. Who is supposed to be benefiting from?
Who benefits from that? Well, the way that TERFs seem to talk about it, it's a really big deal, or they seem to really benefit from a single sex space.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, there's like elements of like weird fantasy in it too, but I mean, yeah, like one of the things I was thinking about was like, oh, we can't have mixed gender bathrooms because like men will be ejaculating in a stall next to their daughters putting tampons in, which seemed like a really wild delete.
All right. Who jerks off in a public that's the
well, I think whoever wrote that was jerking off to the idea of whatever was going to go on in
no judgment, do whatever you want in a public restroom stall, all good. But like that just seems like not the ideal venue for it, you know? It's just like not really comfortable. Like I don't know. Man, sorry, I'm getting really off topic.
I think people want to think that's what happens, but I don't.
Yeah, but you know, like totally okay to jerk off public bathroom stall next to your homies. That's chill though.
I feel like you couldn't just
sorry.
Wait for
I'm
them
12,
to leave.
Emotionless, so sorry, I'm good. I'm done with the. I'm good.
Yeah.
We can keep talking about whatever.
I don't know what we're on now, but
man, this is great. I think my parents listen to these, so
cool.
It's awesome.
Well,
hi, Mom.
Oh, my mom listens to it. Yeah,
perfect.
Talk about really bad stuff. I think I asked my mom to read my book, and she went straight to like the chapter, the BDSM chapter, and read half of it, and then said, "No, I'm not gonna read it."
There's a lot of other good parts.
I know. It took a while to get there.
If Miss LaRose is watching, highly recommend you finish the rest of the book. There's other good parts too, you know.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
It's good. It's good.
It's just a theme lately.
There is BDSM in it, but there's also that's not. I wouldn't want to reduce your story to purely a BDSM story. There's a lot of other stuff. It's like cyberpunk and cyberpunk. I love cyberpunk.
Yeah, but okay. Where are we at with autonomy?
Yeah. I think we're kind of like at a transitional point. We can talk about anything now.
Oh, okay. What should we talk about?
I mean, this is like vaguely autonomous. This is more of the body side than the autonomy side. But something I've been doing recently, it's kind of like my pet project. This is a big transition, by the way. Like, it's a very different tangent. But I've been doing a lot of like martial arts recently. I started doing Kyokushin karate. So before I've trained Wing Chun, I've trained Muay Thai, I've done a little bit of boxing, and now I'm trying Kyokushin karate. So in order to become Bruce Lee, I just need to learn the cha-cha slide next and ballroom dancing.
Oh yeah.
You know, in my quest to become Bruce Lee, I've already studied philosophy at UW. So anyway, but I've been thinking about like bodily autonomy through like martial arts and stuff. And I think there's a degree in which like martial arts, and I don't think this is limited to martial arts. I think a lot of different kinds of physical activities can do this for people. But for me, it's like martial arts resonates the most. But like the way you become connected with your body, and I think that's like a very different relationship to your body, because normally like a lot of like body policing and identity, it's about what other people are doing to your body and how you're being read and interpreted. Whereas in a lot of kinds of physical activities, I think dance is one that people talk about a lot of giving this feeling, as well as like being connected to your body and experiencing your body for yourself, instead of experiencing your body as how other people experience your body, right? So that's actually something that I really enjoy, and I've been thinking a lot about philosophy, especially like East Asian philosophy, in relation to martial arts practice through body. Specifically the relationship between Buddhism and Taoism in China, and as how those philosophies spread throughout like East Asia and Southeast Asia. Like Buddhism came from India, of course, but it also changed as it became integrated into local Chinese indigenous folk religions. But there's kind of this interesting philosophical difference between like Buddhist styles, which in general tend to be more external, and by external I mean more not necessarily more strength-based. It's a little hard to express, but a lot of the Buddhist philosophy is about weathering and resisting and being unchanged. So like absorbing and like not reflecting like pain, or like hitting and then influencing your opponent's center of mass without disrupting your center of mass. Like that's kind of a very Buddhist concept of the body. Whereas a lot more like Taoist influenced martial arts are more internal, in the sense that like harmony is like a really big concept in Taoism. So rather than like resisting, there's a lot more concepts about like redirection. So I don't know, I've just been thinking a lot about how philosophical ideas about the world and about metaphysics can also relate to the way you experience your own body. So that's just my like shower thought.
Yeah. What can I say about that?
sorry. I mean, I kind of that was a big one.
No, I have thoughts about that, because I do think that it's really unhealthy to be super, super obsessed with how other people are experiencing your body all the time, and or even to only experience your own body through other people. That's something.
It feels very objectifying, you know.
Yeah, I'm at that point where I can really only see my body as an object, or like as something that needs to be evaluated, or that either does or doesn't have inherent value.
Yeah.
And I think that's causing a lot of stress and like inner pain for me, because I do that thing where I punch trees a lot. And I'm still doing that, and or I'll have little tantrums, and I'll punch things, but it feels like those are those rare moments where I can like let it be external, but then I don't ever fully release it. Like I'm still in that space where I'm not experiencing my body as like the actual thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I think
for me, like I think like if you're familiar with like concept like body positivity, I feel like I'm definitely not at the point of like body positivity. I kind of like body neutral.
Well, that's supposed to be the better.
I guess, yeah. You know, it's just like
I'd rather be there, I think.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, like basically how I feel right now is, you know, my body's not perfect. It's got all these issues. You know, my left leg is an inch shorter than my right leg. I have allergies. My sinuses are really messed up. Every time I get a cough, it lasts for like a month. I'm very nearsighted. I'm colorblind. Like there's all these problems with my body, but at the same time, I feel like my body can do some pretty cool things. Like, it takes me places, it can climb, it can kick, hit, it can balance, it can stretch.
Yeah.
It can, you know, like, play computer games. Like all these like little things that you kind of take for granted every day. And then you have to remember, like, not everyone has the privilege to be able to do a lot of these really awesome things. Like, their body may not be able to do those things, or other people may prevent them from allowing them to use their body in that way, even if they're capable of it. So I don't know. It let me rethink about my body in a different way. Of like, oh, actually, there are like a lot of really cool things that my body does every single day. That's kind of awesome, you know?
Yeah.
Millions of years of evolution like produced our bodies, you know. This is peak evolution. It may not feel like it. This is what peak performance looks like.
No, in a lot of ways I do think about that. We're at our peaks, or at least we have the potential to be. I do feel like I'm squandering it somewhat, but I mean I'd like to. Yeah, I think that my body's really cool in a lot of ways, or it's definitely like more powerful than I even really need it to be. It has that potential.
You haven't even seen your final form.
No, I just mean I should do more with it is I guess what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah.
But like I have like bursts of energy, and clearly there's like a lot there. Like I can break a tree, so I don't know.
I mean, that's the whole point, though. It doesn't have
I can
to
cause
do
a lot of
anything,
damage.
right? It's
Right.
If it helps you do the things that you want to, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I guess anything external at this point feels like, that's, so much better than just having my entire experience of it be like internalized in unhealthy ways. Yeah, just being obsessed. I think that's the problem with body positivity sometimes. And also it often like it's got the potential to totally flip. Like one little thing, and it's
right, because it inherently builds like almost a level of guilt, right? Because then if you think, oh, I need to be body positive, and then whenever you're like, you don't feel good about your body, then it creates like this whiplash, like, oh, I feel guilty for not feeling good about my body, which makes me feel worse.
And
it's like
I'm
getting slapped twice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I'm at least at the place where that, like, I feel like random people won't affect that. Like they won't send me off in that direction, but there's still like people that I care about that like little comments or whatever will like affect me. So it would be nicer to have the neutral view. I think that's something that doesn't get espoused enough in the like body positivity, self-help world, like body neutrality.
Right. Sometimes we should just linger in ambivalence.
Yeah.
You don't have to have an opinion about
body
it.
ambivalence, body apathy. Maybe not apathy. Yeah, it's all a scam, and autonomy feels like it's one of the few things that's like really should be simple. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you mean, in the sense of like that's inherently the way we interact with the world. Like it's kind of the premise for having experiences is like having a body, right?
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, no, I've always thought like that. Like there's no reason to really try to criminalize anyone who's like doing drugs or doing anything to themselves that just affects themselves. Like there's never a good result to that. It just creates like an unhealthy like relationship between people's bodies and the state that's like pretty toxic. I think, well, maybe there are limits to this, or lots of people think there's limits to this. I think, I don't really care that much about, what other people think of it, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's not affecting them directly. It just all seems like the same logic to me, the same flawed logic. That, like, it's either coming from a moral place or, like, the state should not allow this because then it's this, or
Yeah. Actually, like, maybe this is a good closing topic. Is like the way our bodies are moralized is that like that's really weird.
yeah, it's
Because I think that's what I really appreciate, kind of like arriving at this body neutrality. Is like, yeah, my body has these issues, but it's got these other redeeming qualities. It's kind of weird. I think of it like like a car or something. It's like, yeah, there's just how much horsepower it has. The windows don't roll down all the way, but like it's a pretty good car. It drives places, you know. Maybe a weird metaphor to come from someone who doesn't drive,
but it's a
you
yeah.
know, it's like that mindset. Because I think about that a lot when it comes to like dieting. Because dieting becomes this really moralized thing, and it's really weird. It like there's one thing is being healthy, right? But people like moralize weight loss,
Yeah.
which is also weird because like there's weight loss is not a great health indicator.
Look at me then and look at me now and look
Right.
at how I'm a better person now because I'm
right.
more
It's like,
moral.
I'm more disciplined. I have like
I'm-
integrity. I like
Oh, wow,
manage
yeah.
my like desires. Like there's this weird like self-policing, right?
Yeah.
The reason it's praiseworthy, it's like, oh, like you police your own body, like, and I mean, like, health can be a way to express bodily autonomy. Like, I don't want to make like blanket statements about it, but I think definitely the rhetoric around dieting is
Yeah.
really weird. To like say that, oh, if you're not eating healthy, you're a bad person.
No, that's
Which is, first of all, like your physical health and your diet is oftentimes a byproduct of your economic and social situation in life.
yeah.
So that's something that people usually don't have a lot of control
And that's
over.
something that's reversed
So,
since,
yeah.
you know, olden times. But people, clearly people, like, what is that? Like, people are upset that they've dieted or done some sort of regime, and then they still see fat people, and it's maybe fat people who are actually happy, and maybe they're still not happy.
Projection.
And they feel like they have to moralize it in that way so
Right,
that those
yeah.
people aren't allowed to be happy.
Yeah, it's like kind of, it's always hard to talk about because there's such a wide range, and like I think there are a lot of very commendable reasons to like change your diet. So I definitely like support
Sure, if
people
it's
who are doing
gonna
that.
like
But at the same time, like don't judge other people for what they eat. Like
anyone who changes their diet and then says like you can give people tips and stuff, like
yeah,
just
right,
don't
but,
try
like,
to moralize it in that way.
exactly. Like if you want to eat that cake, eat that cake. Like sure, it's not healthy, but like will it make you happy? Hell yeah! Like
I just think it kind of proves
You
that
know.
people haven't actually learned from whatever that dieting experience is. It's just a purely surface level thing, if that's what they do.
right. Yeah.
Like, as to what you're saying about, you know, let's not put this on everyone. Like, there's definitely
right.
people who do that and then are like, you know, live and let
'cause
live.
I think it's totally great to celebrate people becoming healthier, but that can look a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
Like honestly, for a lot of people, like if I were to be healthier, it might actually involve me gaining weight because like, right? It's like a weird assumption to think that everyone needs to lose weight. There's like some weird fat phobia embedded
Definitely
in that
not.
too.
Yeah.
And it's like I think what oftentimes we're praising is like we're not actually saying like, oh, I'm celebrating you being healthier. It's like, wow, good job for torturing yourself, right? That's kind of like the implication behind like anyway. Diets.
Well,
is
everyone
weird.
wants
Diet
to be
culture's
buff
weird.
Jesus on the cross or whatever. Like, that's how you're supposed
yeah.
to feel, is just like you've been through this ordeal, and then that's inherently like makes you morally superior, that you've put yourself through some kind of pain.
Right.
It's like interesting. I guess I'm guilty of that too in some ways.
I mean, we all are. It's like,
Everyone does
it's
that,
hard
I
not to,
think.
you know, because like we're exposed to that all the time. That kind of messaging.
I definitely like romanticize my suffering a lot.
Yeah.
And like, this makes me better because I'm suffering like in like a sexy way.
yeah. Yeah, like I think that's a super normal and reasonable coping mechanism, you know? Like it makes a lot of sense. But also at the same time it can sometimes be a distraction behind like what's actually responsible for this? Like did this actually have to happen? And sometimes it's something you can change, and sometimes it's because someone else is benefiting from your suffering. It's like good to be
That's a good
aware of like you know, some suffering is unnecessary. Sometimes it doesn't have to happen.
You see it a lot, though. You see it a lot in media, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it tells people that there has to be pain, like love is pain. That's an idea.
It's like a very like
I think my
Puritan is like I think kind of like the intellectual genealogy of this idea is to like Puritanism in the early Americas.
my 4-year-old cousin really likes Taylor, or she was 4 years old when this happened, but she really liked Taylor Swift, and she was singing one of the songs, and there's a part where it goes, girls only want love if it's torture, like something like that. And my sister and I were like, oh, we can't
Love if it's torture.
we can't let her think this, like
Something like
she's
that.
already learning these messages, but like it's true, people do learn this message like really early on.
Yeah. Oh, there's that other song? What is it? Is that one? There's is it One Direction? Like, you don't know you're beautiful. Oh, which is also kind of messed up. It's like, wow, it's so hot that you have low self-esteem and don't value yourself properly.
That's what
also messed up, you know.
But there's something real there too. Like, people actually do fetishize that, like that.
Undervaluing yourself.
Yeah. Actually, but like, yeah, it's okay to like play with those kinds of concepts. Like, if you actually have confidence already, it's like okay to be a little coy, I guess, or to try to be like fake humble about shit. That's okay. I understand why people like go for that. It's like, it can be a cute look kind of, but it's not good if that's actually what you think about yourself. Like, what you've taken from that is that you have to actually like.
Yeah, so you heard it here first, folks, from Riese.
Did I say something stupid?
No, it's good. It's like, you know, if the real power move is to be so confident that you can be a little bit humble. You can afford to be a little humble, you know?
Is that what I do, or am I just...
That's the real confidence, is that you don't need to talk... No, actually, though, right? Because the people who talk big are actually insecure, right? Because if you're actually confident, you don't need to say it. Everything speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, I think there's even maybe a room for a little bit.
People who have, like, really huge ego who are actually really insecure, and they're compensating, right? Because they feel like their value doesn't speak for itself. So they have to broadcast it, you know?
Yeah. I think neither of us is actually that insecure.
In that sense, yeah.
Yeah, not in the sense
cool,
that we're
understated vibe.
Yeah, we don't feel like the need to constantly beef ourselves up, but clearly we're both capable of saying like positive things about ourselves.
Yeah.
And also don't
good.
feel like we need to tear everyone down.
Yeah, great.
Not to suck our own dicks on this, but like
we've come a long way since middle school. This is great.
I don't know.
Character
I think that's
development.
cool. Yeah, no. Not everyone hits that. I mean, yeah, not everyone hits that.
Yeah,
even ever.
Yeah,
but
some
it
people
feels
never
good.
escape middle school.
Yeah, well,
They peaked in middle school.
don't joke about that. People will get angry.
Yeah, sorry.
They peaked.
If you peaked in middle school and you're listening to this broadcast,
that's valid.
Yeah,
We're glad.
But also, maybe you should go to
You
therapy.
can still,
I mean, that doesn't constitute medical
those
advice.
achievements
but,
are
like, everyone
still
should consider
impressive.
Therapy. Yeah. Great. We should just end here, honestly. This is a great way to end.
I don't know what this episode was really, but like
fine. It was
I'm
good. It was a
really
vibe.
glad if people stuck past the 30-minute mark, because that's when it kind of
Yeah.
went on a big tangent. I thought the tangent was pretty interesting. So
Great.
You
can add
know.
timestamps.
It's going to be one of those. We'll see what like the future of this podcast is, because the topics have been getting looser. We might come back in a couple weeks with a little more of a topic that we'll stick to, or it might just get even looser. I don't know.
It'd be cool to get a guest sometime. I think that
Yeah.
tentatively.
Yeah, that would be
it's
cool.
on
We
the-
could
on the
actually
docket.
we'd be able to like tailor it a little more to the guest, which would be interesting, because there's a lot of these that I don't always feel it feels like a little imbalanced sometimes. I
mean,
don't
that
know.
can be cool. I think it's good. There's a bunch of things that like we're experts at different things. So
Oh yeah.
it's cool.
We've got different spheres of experience, but it'd be cool to have someone else with like their own sphere.
Yeah.
Get some more spheres in here.
I love spheres.
Yeah. But this has been a good episode. It was good to finally do it again. So hopefully we'll be back in another couple weeks with another Couch Philosophy.
Great.
And we love you so much. Thank you so much for listening again.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.